Hello, everyone, and welcome to Authentic Conversations. We have a new plan going on with lots of energy. So we have Chrysanthe back on set.
Hello.
Hello, Chrysanthe.
Hi, thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
Hel- Hello, Susan.
Hello.
So we've had Chrysanthe come over a couple of times and join us, and we just love the conversations that come up, the energy, specifically the energy of the full moon and what's happening in our planet and how are we feeling and adjusting to it. So we wanted to explore a little bit more of this creativity going on with our new moon that just happened, right? Creativity. So Chrysanthi, you're going to guide us through a little bit of the full moon in Libra that's coming up. There's Venus in Pisces energy happening, Mercury retrograde, and an eclipse. I mean, whoa.
So as above, so below. There's a lot going on up there, and there's a lot of things to manage down here. So I think it's super important that we understand, the relationship between what's happening in the universe and what's happening in our own little universe. So, Chrysanthi, we are thrilled to be educated about what it is that we need to pay attention to. So, yeah, what you got?
Hey, well, I am so excited and thank you again for having me on. So let's literally dive right into it because there is so much astrological activity going on within the next few weeks. And there's really this blending of different energies. Some of which are the same, but there are very different energies that are blending as well. So I think first, let's begin with Venus being in Pisces until April 5th. So Venus is known as the planet of love. And Venus is definitely associated with love and connections. However, Venus doesn't necessarily need to be boxed in the way that many of us probably assume Venus to be. Venus has to do with all connections. So it has to do with our connections with other people, it can be our connections with our pets, animals, our connection with the earth, and our connection with ourselves as well. So think of Venus as influencing our interactions and our partnerships of all kinds, not just focusing on romantic partnerships, but of all types. Venus is also the planet that influences leisurely activities, what we like to do for fun, and how we like to relax. So think about those activities that make you happy. It could be taking a walk, it could be listening to music, maybe it's a sport you like, maybe it is going to the beach, whatever it may be. If it brings you that relaxation and that calmness and that fun, that would fall under Venus-like activities. So we have this beautiful, exciting, joyful planet known as Venus, and Venus is being exalted in the sign of Pisces. So Venus does very well in Pisces, which is what that means. And we spoke on our last time we connected, we spoke a little bit of, or I should say a lot about Piscean energy and what Pisces represents. Pisces is, for those of us that are just tuning in or just need a reminder, Pisces is the soft fish, right? It's got that soft underbelly. So Pisces represents intuition, magic, empathy, kindness, certain sensitivities. So when you have the planet of love, connection, leisurely activities in the sign of Pisces, being exalted, raised up in the sign of Pisces, it means that Venus is going to be thriving in this energy. So this is very favorable, we could say. So when we're thinking about our different connections, our different relationships with all sorts of people and with ourselves, it's safe to assume that this is an extra lucky time in that department. This is a time that we can begin to really focus on understanding one another a little bit more. We're going to most likely feel a little bit more understood by those that we are seeking that attention and that connection from, we may start to find more opportunities to engage in the practices and activities that are enjoyable for ourselves. We might be able to make more time for that, or those opportunities just kind of come to us. So Pisces is being exalted in Venus until April 5th. And it's really a time of focusing on those themes of connection and honoring connection. So what we're trying to think of, like, what are some ways that I can honor the connections that are really important to me? And maybe it can be something as simple as sending a text message to someone I care about and checking in on them. Maybe it can be calling someone up and wishing them good luck on something that I know they have an upcoming meeting or assignment due, or whatever it may be. So we want to think about how to foster those connections, and also trusting that regardless, Pisces is going to give us that boost of magic in that department of our relationships, so that it's most likely going to be feeling good overall.
That's
Uh,
awesome. Who doesn't want to
yes,
feel good and connect
yes,
with people that they care about and connect with themselves? It sounds like a fabulous couple of weeks.
yes, yes. And I would also add, because Pisces is a deeply intuitive energy, and has the potential to be very sensitive. One thing that we should just be mindful of during this time is to not blow things out of proportion, and to not take things um, too personally. And we should always strive to not take things too personally, but especially during this time when we might be feeling a little bit more tender, a little bit more sensitive, more in tune with others. If we hear something, or if we are to misunderstand something, just to be mindful to not make assumptions and to not jump to any type of conclusion. Rather, just understanding that we're probably just feeling things a little bit more deeply. But that doesn't mean that we have to act on everything that we feel, or assume that everything that we think is true necessarily. So that's another lesson that can be helpful for us during this time. Venus and Pisces.
Awesome. So Venus will be in Pisces, and then what's happening? What's co-happening? What
Yes.
else are we looking for?
So March 25th, we're going to have the moon is going to be in Libra. So we're going to have a full moon in the sign of Libra. And this is the sister sign of Aries. So we will be officially in Aries season during this time. So with our sun sign being in Aries, and then the moon sign being in the sister sign of Libra, we have those two opposites, yet they're very much drawn to one another. So full moon traditionally is a time of letting go and releasing. We
Mhm.
might notice that our emotions are a little bit more heightened during this time. Again, we might feel some of that tenderness enhanced because it will be a full moon. And we want to start to consider some themes of, what can I let go of? What can I literally let go of the weight of, that has been weighing down on me, that maybe I do not actually need to carry? And maybe I just chose to carry it out of past patterns and past habits, and just maybe not knowing anything different. What can I choose to let go of? And this is interesting because it is having to do with Libra energy. Libra energy is influenced by the seventh house, which is having to do with partnerships. So it's a Venetian energy. It's connecting with how we spoke about some of those themes about Venus. Aries is connected to that. So when we have a full moon in Libra, we're thinking now, okay, what can I do to maybe lessen my stress load when it comes to my relationships? And that will look different for everyone. Maybe it means not taking on more than we can handle at any one moment. Maybe it has to do with certain obligations or promises or duties that we have for others. How can we begin to maybe sift and sort, like, what should I really be doing right now and perhaps what can wait, and what do I maybe not need to promise, in order to preserve my peace and
So
to
really
preserve the
finding your priorities, really
yes.
kind of narrowing down what's super important and what you're willing to just kind of put on the shelf for now.
Exactly, exactly. So looking through and saying like, I don't need to actually tackle this right now, and I can instead focus on these tasks or these interactions. Um, because oftentimes we might feel that we are trying to meet all of these demands and obligations, and we might think we have to do it all. But if we were to actually look at it logically, and Libra is an air energy, so there is a lot of that inclination to look at things logically. We can begin to decipher and see, okay, this is what I should be putting my energy into right now. And this is what, as you said, what I need to put on the side. So this full moon in Libra is going to encourage us to basically do some spring cleaning when it comes to our relationships and the way that we look at those relationships. And I should actually say that the biggest part of that has to do with our own mindset about our relationships. In some cases, there doesn't actually need to be so much of a major change in the dynamic, but rather how we view the dynamic and how we are speaking about the dynamic. So that full moon, March 25th, is going to remind us to do so, and it will last for approximately 2.5 days. But we may feel the effects of it a little bit afterwards, a few days, or a little bit before a few days. And that's all okay, and that's perfect as well.
A lot of relationship energy going on. It's interesting
Yes.
how we start off. So we are starting off with the relationships of everyone around us, and then continuing into this full moon, sort of like giving us that time to tap into this energy of how we're feeling about those around us, those that support us, and then being full and kind of letting go. I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Letting go and shifting perspectives. That's what I heard. So awesome. Awesome. So then we move into this next energetic period, which, following the full moon, the week following the full moon, or the plus or minus 2, 3 days following the full moon, there's a lot more stuff going on.
Yes, yes, there is.
Ooh.
So I should have also added that because now at this time during the full moon, we have stepped into Aries season. So to just give a brief overview of what does that mean? So Aries, astrologically, it is the first sign of the new year. So we're actually starting a new astrological year with Aries, and that'll be around March 19th. So it is at that time that the new year officially begins, if you're seeing it from an astrological lens. So we begin with Aries, and Aries is known in the tale of the zodiac, Aries is known as the spark of creation. Aries is the fiery zest that we all have within us. And in the story of the zodiac, we start off with Aries, and then eventually we move into the other zodiac signs, and they all contribute in some way. Like, for example, Taurus is when we start to gain a body and our senses on earth, but the whole zodiac starts with Aries. It starts with that spark.
Mm.
So Aries is a fire energy, and it's a cardinal fire energy, which means it is a leader. So we have the leader of the fire signs starting off our astrological new year. Aries is also known as the pioneer. So it's a ton of fire energy. We may at times feel a bit impulsive. We may at times feel like wanting to take a risk or to go on an adventure or just really put ourselves out there in some way. And this fire energy is going to give us the courage that maybe have would maybe was not as outright during those winter months. Like, it was always there. That courage is always a part of us. It is us. But Aries season most likely will give us that boost of energy to really start showing that courage in different ways.
Mm.
So with Aries season, we also have Mercury in retrograde, April 1st. Now, and that's really funny, being April Fool's Day. Um, Now, oftentimes there are certain stereotypes having to do with Mercury retrograde. There are, and I'm sure we've all heard them. There might be jokes that are told like, "Oh my gosh, don't do this! It's Mercury retrograde." There may also be some fear concerning Mercury retrograde, and really some genuine concern with doing certain activities during Mercury retrograde. What I would say about Mercury retrograde is to really view it as a time to take a step back and to observe what is going on, and to be mindful to not become too consumed in overactive thoughts and possible impulsiveness, which will be interesting considering how much fire energy there is. And it can be very much, we might feel more inclined to act out during that time. But it's very important that we take a step back and we really become more of an observer. During this retrograde in particular, it's very interesting because there's going to be an emphasis on second chances in some way. So, Aries, usually when we think of Aries, we're thinking like new beginnings, pioneer paving the way, which is all totally true. This particular retrograde is highlighting second chances, perhaps rekindling something, starting new, but in a different way, and having a second chance at something. And that could look like anything for anyone. It could have to do with a relationship, it could be work related, it could even be pursuing a certain activity, or trying a certain lifestyle change again if we feel like it didn't work out the first time. So Mercury in retrograde during this time is going to give us again that fiery boost to be able to have more hopefulness for the second chance, whatever that second chance may look like, for any of us. And that fire energy as well is going to propel us. It's also going to give us an added dose of optimism. We're probably going to feel invigorated by it. And the one thing that I will also say about that is, again, to not become too consumed in the excitement of it all, but rather to just use the energies to your advantage. So to notice and say, like, hey, maybe I am getting a second chance of something, or maybe I'm getting a brand new idea altogether. And with that energy, like with that literal like boost of energy to go forward, at the same time going sideways and being able to observe and noticing, okay, when is it that I want to make my move? Because we don't need to make a move after every thought that comes into our mind. We're allowed to take our time on things. And Aries doesn't always want to do that, but Mercury in retrograde is going to actually be encouraging us to do so.
Slows us down a little bit so that we have an opportunity to explore the plan and to observe the current circumstances so we know when we're going to dive in.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So as
That's
we
April 1st.
Yes, yes. And that will go on for a few weeks. And I should also say that every time that there's like a retrograde, in this case, Mercury retrograde, we typically start to feel the effects of that before as well. So even though that's April 1st, we may start to notice some of those themes even up to like 2 weeks beforehand. And once Mercury retrograde officially ends after a few weeks, there is a shadow period as well. And that's really more of a reflection period. And the shadow period usually lasts for about 2 weeks. So we're really going to feel the influence of this retrograde, well over a month.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'm counting, I'm like 6 weeks, right? 2 weeks before,
If
3 weeks
not almost.
in it, 2 weeks after, 7 weeks, 6 weeks. Yeah.
Yes, it's going to be for quite a while, but it's going to be good. And something I really want to just express is to not be afraid about these retrogrades. There's nothing to be afraid of. Everything is to help us. Everything is for our benefit. Everything can have its fun and its joy involved. It's all a matter of, as we were speaking about last time, it's all a matter of our choices and how we choose to view it. So let's view this retrograde as giving us that boost of energy that we may have been craving after this winter season. Let's view it, as a time of being able to step back and also observe, and kind of like with with all of that excitement and energy, also kind of like planning and thinking about our next moves. And let's view it in that way instead of any other narrative that isn't serving us, that we don't need to hold on to. Um,
So while we're in Mercury in retrograde, Mercury's in retrograde, which starts on April Fool's Day.
yes.
What else do we have? I mean, I know it's a big first week in April, so.
Yes. So then that first week in April, around April 5th, Venus is going to be changing. So Venus will no longer be in Pisces, and it will now be moving into the sign of Aries, which is more fire energy. So we're in Aries season, going through a retrograde, an Aries retrograde. And then on top of that, Venus, the planet of leisurely activities and love and connections, is also in this fireball of Aries. So we've just got
Things are
Aries.
heating up. Things are
Yes.
heating up. And
Yes. To put it
they're,
lightly, exactly. They,
yeah.
they are definitely heating up. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because it's going to be up to us to decide how hot we want it to be. Because we also have to we have to remember here that we can decide to bring that notch down a bit if we feel like it's too much. We don't have to, as I was saying, like, we don't have to act on every thought or every invitation that comes our way. We can really practice that pause and then still use that fire energy to make the moves that are best for us and that feel right for us. And sometimes we need a little time in order to figure that out. But with Venus in Aries, so there's going to be a lot of courage when it comes to our connections. So we've moved away from this more watery, intuitive, sensitive, tender Piscean energy to this fireball of courage and strength and excitement, and just this energetic vibe, basically, of Aries. And there may be the desire for some impulsiveness again. And when we're thinking about Venus and those themes we spoke about earlier, so relationships of all types and leisurely activities, we again need to be mindful that we are making moves that feel right to us and that we know are the right thing to do, rather than just acting in whatever way, because Aries can very much be an energy that, kind of gives us that push of impulsiveness. And impulsiveness does not have to be a negative thing at all. It could actually be a really great thing in many ways. But we have to make sure, are are we allowing ourselves to decipher that energy and then make a sovereign decision, or are we just being ruled by any impulse we have? So there's a difference between the two. So in other words, use Aries energy to your liking and your benefit. Don't let it use you.
Okay.
But a lot of grounding, is that also, this is what I'm
So,
getting,
so
grounding.
so yes, that's what we have a need for during this time.
Right.
And I'm so glad you said that, because shortly after, a few weeks after this, we're going to be moving into like the ultimate grounding energy, which is Taurian energy.
And we'll
Taurus
get to
season.
that when we get to that, but yeah.
Yes. But this time, this can actually be a type of medicine for us when we are feeling too much of that fire, because honestly, like, I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of fire energy that we're gonna be going through in a certain time span. So we do want to engage in practices that are gonna help us to pause. That can look like taking a walk outside, even something as simple as that, going to the gym. Exerting energy and exercise is something that's going to be very helpful for Aries season. Sweating, being able to take out some of those heightened emotions and energy. And in doing so, because we will have worked ourselves up to a certain point, there's going to be a release. And that release, when we come to that area of calmness, it's going to feel like groundedness. So we're going to be doing both. So we can think of ways that we can become more connected to our body, because we're going to be very much in our emotions when it comes to fire and maybe some of that impulsiveness. So maybe it's a yoga class, maybe it is dance and dancing and sweating and really trying to, not necessarily trying, I shouldn't say that, but connecting to our body and remembering, like, okay, I'm feeling a lot, but I am in this body at the same time, and I am grounded, and I can take these steps to help myself feel even more, a little bit more rooted when I'm feeling so much of this fire. So we are going to need to remedy that a bit, remedy some of that fire. And again, make it work for us. So if there's something that maybe you've been feeling maybe shy about, or you haven't really felt that it was the right time to pursue, maybe something that we feel like we've been putting off, in truth, we haven't been putting anything off. It just wasn't the time that felt right enough for us to do it.
Right.
So maybe this Aries season, or maybe not, maybe it's another season, but this Aries season does give us that opportunity of being a trailblazer. It gives us the courage. It gives us a wide open heart. And I also just want to add that in, that Aries, because there's so much courage there, there's not a lot of self-doubt. So it's really reminding us, like, how can I just jump into this and do this? And how can I do it with an open heart? What would you do if you knew that you could not fail? That's what Aries is asking all of us during this time.
That's
Okay,
great.
so have we already passed the eclipse, or that's
No,
next?
that's next. Can you imagine that? Right.
Woo!
So the crowning glory of that week, like following the full moon and the retrograde and the movement into Aries and fire, right? The crowning glory is Monday the 8th, where a good portion of the United States will experience some form of eclipse.
Yes. Yes. So we have the solar eclipse in Aries, April 8th. So it's
Fire.
like bam, 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 one after another. Let's just say we're going to be basically like energetically bathing in Aries energy. So a solar eclipse of any type is extremely potent. It's really super powerful. We want to be mindful that we're engaging in self-care practices, especially during eclipse season. For some people, the energy might just feel really intense, maybe even a bit harsh. And by that, I don't mean that anything negative is happening, but they might literally just feel like energetically, like it feels a bit sharp and like pointy, because eclipse season is super potent. And so we want to think about ways that we can nurture ourselves a little bit more during that time, ways that we can, as Emerella said, to ground ourselves, ways that we can bring a little bit of water in all of this heat, because there's a lot of heat. So this can even look like, if possible, like going somewhere where there's a body of water.
Yeah.
If it's possible to swim, if it's possible to maybe just even like listen to water sounds. Not that we're taking away from that fire energy, but we're just helping to balance it out. But with this solar eclipse, it is going to definitely be intense. And very similar to some themes that we said before, we don't want to believe every thought we think during this time. We don't want to follow every impulse that comes to us that we might feel. We don't want to necessarily like send every text message that's like on our mind. Like, again, it is okay to pause, but using that energy again to your benefit. So maybe you don't want to, send a message for every thought that you think, but there was one message in particular that you did want to send that you had never, maybe never had the courage to do before. Go for that. So use your discernment.
Yeah.
Aries energy altogether, because it is that spark of creation, it's very childlike, which means there's actually a lot of innocence there, and there's this desire to play. So there's a desire to like have a fresh new outlook, and like Aries very much is like I'm stepping into my life, and I want to explore, I want to play, I want to learn, and it's going to be important for us to use those themes, but also to use it with our own discernment. And if we apply it using our discernment, we really can't go wrong. So, all in all, being mindful of not being too impulsive, but not shying away from the fire either. Use the fire to benefit you. And again, do not be ruled by the fire.
Yeah, and I feel like discernment is an act of the heart, not of the head.
Mhm.
So, if something feels right, regardless of, so thinking, thoughts are impulses, right? So all of our thoughts are impulses. Our feelings are not necessarily impulses, they're responses to impulses. So our mind is impulsive. So we can't follow. It's like the traffic light. It goes red, yellow, green, caution, wait, go, no, wait, stop. Yeah, no, wait, go, no, wait, stop, right? So we can't stay with that impulsiveness without just checking it with our heart and following the thing that feels most right, because that's discernment. Discernment is an act of the heart. Impulses are the act of the mind, the thinking mind. So,
Yes, yes, that's an excellent point. That we have to be mindful. Also, something that comes to mind is that concept of like monkey mind, right? Where
mhm.
we're overthinking certain things, we're piecing together stories that may or may not be true based on evidence that we've accumulated throughout our life and everything. And it can be very easy during Aries season to want to like act on that. So we really need to use, especially that retrograde, to, like I said, take a step sideways. Doesn't necessarily have to be back, but take a step sideways, observe, use that discernment, keep that Aries spark and playfulness and childlike behavior, but also understanding, like, at the same time, I am an adult who has fine tuned my discernment in many ways. Like, I have these skills that I most likely didn't have when I was a child. So, using these skills, can I merge and blend and have the best of both worlds? Can I have this excitement and enthusiasm, pioneering spirit while also keeping, my heart open? And can I also have this discernment and being able to have the power of choice, power to
And
decide?
the wiser version of the childlike innocence.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what is within all of us, and especially during this time is going to be activated, and it will give us the opportunity to use it and to play with it. And to also the opportunity to make what we might say are mistakes. Because in truth, there's not really actually mistakes. And Aries recognizes that. Like, because Aries is that trailblazer, if something happens and that Aries energy doesn't really like it, just do something else
Choose
then.
another, right, choose another path, choose another
Yeah,
option, choose the next best, make the next best decision, because a mistake is just making the best decision in the moment and then realizing that you want to make a better decision. It's not, it's not backwards. So I'm gonna have to listen to this like every 2 days over the next couple of weeks, because yeah, there is so much happening. And, I love this, Chrysanthe. I think it's just, it's amazing that you share, your gift and your wisdom, to help people kind of round it out. We talk about the tools all the time, Amaryllis, right?
Absolutely. I love the fact that you reminded us of the mind, the heart, and our gut feelings. Because when we're too much up here, then we're not coming in genuinely from our heart. So, Chrysanthi, thank you. Thank you, Susan, for that reminder, because it just put it all together. I was like, oh, yes. Sometimes we can write it down, we can journal about it, we can put it in our to-do list, goals, settings. And how do we step back and then take action? because there's always going to be the right time, guys. Always.
Timing is always divine. The timing is always divine. It might not be on your time, but it is certainly divine time. So I can't wait to do this again in a couple weeks and talk about the rest of Aries season, because who knows, you
Me
know?
too. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you,
Awesome.
guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, ladies, for being here this evening. Appreciate you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Much.